And you can see I got the sun right in my eyes. It'll be gone in just a minute. Okay. Trinity, this is very nice. Some color applications, very nice. Guys keep coming in late here. To stop and keep doing attendance. So I'm just kind of looking at this, the study of color here. One of the things that you may want to just give yourself some time and think about is this the notion of where highlights and shadows fall. I think you've got most of it, but I think that when I look at the character with the red hair here and the purple eyes, it's kind of the opposite. So it's almost like you have a light source that's coming in from the middle that's lighting up both of them. Sometimes it's more consistent to pick a light source that's like upper left or upper right, so that you know where the highlights fall and the shadows fall. It just makes it easier on you. I know that when I'm doing whatever it is, I can always just tell what the piece is going to call for. Like for instance, I think that having the light source on the upper right for this guy with the darker hair, it's good. It throws the shadow of the chin in just a really nice place. If the light was on the left, then the shadow would be quite a bit more intense. So it's a good study, but just go back in there, because I think that if you do pick that the shadow is upper right here, there are pieces that you could have just low-hanging fruit and just really hit with a little bit more highlight. Other than that, the drawings are good. Thank you, Trinity. Annika, let me do one thing here, everyone. Hold on one second. Okay, yeah, this is fun. This is great. It's always fun seeing a female hero who's over 9 or 10 heads tall. It's always fun. Little expression things down here. Yes, this is excellent. Thank you, Annika. Oh, you have more files. Do you have? What happened to my board here? It's weird. Okay. Ria, it's always a nice thing to study. A little extra perspective there. Yeah, we'll give you credit for that. Now I want you to go and put like perfect circles on all these perspective planes. And I'm not kidding. I think that if you can go back in there and do that with relative technical ability, it really changes the way your eye sees things. It's good. Your characters are always great. Yes, thank you, Ria.
Welcome.
Okay, Rachel. Yeah, this is always fun. Adding a little color to your line weights. Okay, good. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. All right, so what I'm going to do is go back over to today. All right, so this was today, this one right here. Does it show up as green like this and color coded for you all? It probably doesn't. You can only see your side of it. All right, so Annika. Okay, I'm reading it. I'm studying it. All right, so Annika, this is looking really good. I think that we all appreciate the quality of the drawings. I think we definitely appreciate the tone on the character. It makes it easier to see and makes it easier to read. You got little places where there's magic going on. That's always a nice thing. Directional arrows. You've got each panel numbered and each shot numbered, and it looks like they're correct. My intuition is that you're still working on this, right? Looks like you have another bit to go, right? Annika.
Yeah,
All right.
more or less. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to download that because I think I might do the animatic for this one. It might make sense. So that is a PDF, and that is P16. Okay, yeah, this is looking really good. So one thing that kind of caught my eye here is that you've got these 3 characters in panel 19, and they're it says they're in the kitchen. So they're getting warm by the fire. And then in panel 20, it looks like the fire grows. Why does the fire grow in panel 20?
They lit the fire and then it just grows because they can't control it, I guess.
So they just started it. But is that what causes all the smoke in the kitchen?
Yeah.
So they started it and like didn't open the flue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay. And then you didn't describe it. What's this red character going to do with the cleaver?
It's intentionally left undescribed. Just
It's one of those mysterious things.
yeah.
Okay, and then the flying bird comes in. Now, are they running from the kitchen in panel 28?
This character is running up to the kitchen. It's the same hallway
Oh, I see. Running up to it. And then they're going to try to put the fire out, maybe.
Yeah.
So there's a non sequitur where they're running up to the kitchen, and then this technically the panel 30 and panel 32 are not close-ups. They're technically mid shots, but it looks like you reveal that there's a birthday cake that just appears. Is that a giant birthday cake?
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's the part of the mystery as well. You're not going to be explaining too much of baking and whatever. It's just the birthday cake has appeared. So is this character, the gray character in panel 32, is that character is the birthday cake for that person?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that you're in good shape here. I will do the animatic out of this one. You'll see how I do it here in just a moment. And you'll see that there are places that when I'm doing that may need a few extra panels just to describe what's going on. But the drawings look good. The sequencing looks good. It all looks really good. I think it's pretty clear. You just have to finish it. All right, thank you, Annika. Let's take a look at Fernando's. I didn't see Fernando in the welcome room yet. Fernando, are you here? All right, so I'm just going to take a look at this with sequencing, camera. This is always nice having two sets of poses for one shot, two sets of poses. This is done really well. This little extreme close up here with the hand twitching, that's kind of nice. Okay, Fernando, if you're seeing this on video, I think it looks pretty good. I think that you want to change the spelling here. Villains is Villains. AINS. So check that. Make sure you spell that correctly. It looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. Thank you, Fernando. Chloe. Ah, you drew really small.
Yeah, I had some issues and then some files were getting smashed together. So this did not look like that on my screen, but
we should be able to get it to read here. So you got your characters.
Yeah, I was gonna put it in that order.
Backgrounds.
And then the backgrounds, the sketches somehow ended up back on there, and like the thumbs and all wonky.
And you're starting your thumbs. Okay.
I had some more and it just everything kind of got chopped. Well, I don't know what happened when I tried to export it. So
were you in Photoshop?
Yeah, originally it was in Photoshop and then I tried to get InDesign working and it crashed. So I was like, okay, never mind. I'll try that next time.
Okay, so you exported this out of Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, what it looks like is that you compiled all these in one canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you did?
No, they were on different artboards and I haven't had a problem exporting with different artboards before. I don't know exactly what I did, but it kind of ended up like this. So next time I'll like figure out what went wrong.
So I can barely, I got this zoomed in all the way. I can barely see your thumbnails. I think you're on the right track. Just keep going. Your backgrounds look good. And your characters look good. So I would say, Chloe, go, go, go.
Okay.
That's my teaching advice to you. Go, go, go. Just do it.
Thanks.
All right, Ryan. Ryan, you're here tonight?
Yes.
Arms away. Shot one, establishing. Mechanized, robotic arms, bombs. Little timer. And the robots are all leaving. And this one's a little unclear. So they're leaving the assembly line. What is this?
Right. That's so that part where your mouse is right now, or like against the wall, that's like the door that they're all leaving through. So this is kind of the other side of the factory.
Okay. Uh, are these like
They're like
railings
little
or something?
fences, kind of.
Railings?
Yeah.
And there's a close up on the bomb. So this is just a little confusing because he freaks out and looks like they're all leaving. So does he leave in this shot? 8? Does he leave?
No, I have a shot where he actually like leaves and goes to the bomb.
So he goes the other way while these guys go to the right. He goes to the left.
So I think in shot 13 he gets into line, but then later if you scroll down, uh down one more, right there in shot 23 he gets out of line.
And he goes to the bomb to try to disengage it.
Yeah.
And he does. So he clicks it and he goes shoo in 28. He's like shoo, right?
Yeah.
And then he hears a sizzling noise and and his hand is become a torch which lights the bomb and explodes it anyway. Okay, so this is good. Let me see what's going on. So I think that what you could use is remember that my call for any particular storyboard panel when you can is background, midground, and foreground elements. So like a shot like this assembly line could use some stuff in the midground underneath it, stuff in the background up above it, and maybe a little bit of light stuff in panel 3. You've got this assembly line happening with what may be like a huge wall, or you know, where do these like assembly lines go to? It looks, are they?
So they come out of those little tubes and they go onto the bigger line, which is right
Okay,
there.
so yeah, you need to finish drawing those little bowling alley boxes.
Right.
And this isn't over the shoulder. So yeah, that's one thing that you should address is that shots are always better when they have perspective, a background and midground and foreground elements in the. So this is kind of working here for background and midground, but this one needs some foreground elements in there. Right? See that when I'm shaking my mouse?
Yeah.
Shake it, shake it, shake it. Okay. So what are you studying here? He realizes that he's got to go back.
Yeah, that was those are just me. That was me just trying to get the pose of him like kind of scheming. That was me just trying to.
And this is
figure
like a thought sequence, a dream
Yeah.
sequence. And everyone's like, oh, hero, yay, okay. So that solidifies his determination. And then he goes back. And so yeah, draw the background in panel 23 much more clear so that we can see that the bomb isn't just on the floor.
Okay.
So that it's on the assembly line or wherever he left it. So so this plays into something that is common in visual storytelling, and that is that you've done this gesture in what you call beginning of shot 17, and he's like, oh shoot, and when he does that, when he wipes his brow, he doesn't realize it at first, but it ignites the torch on his hand, and we don't actually see how it lights the bomb. And one theory is that some directors like to show that. Some directors like to just be really precise about where things happen on the stage. I think it's okay. I think that you've got the idea of this action happening, and I think as long as you have the indication here in panel 29 that the flame is starting. And that by 30, he's like, oh my God, what did I do? Because then it's mayhem. And I don't think you need to show the end. I don't think you need to show the devastation in the whole factory, but we get the idea. So my idea would be is just to go and make sure you got background, midground, and foreground elements on every shot. All right, thank you, Brian. All right, and then we got a word coming in here from Nada. Okay. Remember, I think title cards is a good way to go. Sometimes I scan really quick to see if your title card is at the end. So Nada, I think that you would like to start with some sort of title card.
Yeah.
All right, exterior, 2 characters watching a plant grow. They're all excited. This is a magic wand.
Yes.
All right, does she take the magic wand, and is that why the plant is growing?
Yeah. So at first, they watered it and then nothing happened. So then they used magic to try to make it grow.
So I think that you need that one gesture of her pointing the magic wand down at it.
Okay.
And I think that you can still do that in panel 14, although you may want 14B, because this is a nice silhouette right here. And I think that just in order to be really clear about what she's doing with her magic wand, you might need another panel right there.
Okay.
All right, then the magic goes around the plant, and the plant does its magic thing, and it becomes out of control. It goes really big, and it becomes a tree, a big tree, a huge tree, and it grows an apple and bonks her on the head. Okay, so this is great. I think that the only thing that's kind of sort of missing is just that one gesture here of them pointing, her pointing it at the plant. You know, I think that this is good in terms of mid shots and then a close up, and they're both watching the plant. But I think that what you also could do here is, see, a lot of times I like to number my pages, because I think that what would be nice would just be a little interaction between your 2 characters. Oh my God, look, we did it. Wow, it's working. And, you know, so they both look at each other, and you don't have to have any dialogue. It's just, you do it in pantomime, like, wow, cool, right? Wow. And just the sense of astonishment that they both share, that this thing that they did is actually working. And then I think that what you can do is, so that would just be like 2 panels right here about them looking at each other instead of just the plant and sharing the joy. And then I think that what happens here is that you show that their astonishment here, and you can see that by the gestures here that they're kind of like, they're being whoa about it, you know. But I think that you could do the same thing here. So now they look at each other, and the inner voice here would be like, oh, wow, cool, right? They're both looking at it, and they're both thinking to each other, cool, wow, magic is a great thing. But when you get to like this point here, they would do the same kind of thing, but now their non-verbals would be like, oh, what are we gonna do? Shoot, what have we done? This thing is out of control. And so you could do the same kind of looking at each other, and then like with the same intent of non-verbal saying, should we stop this? What do we do? Are we in big trouble? And then let the rest of it happen. And you know, for whatever it's worth, I think you could use a little bit of acting right here as well. So that you go from like the first set of interactions of them looking at each other back and forth. Wow, cool. The second one is like, oh no. And then here in this one, the nonverbal would be, oh, okay, it's going to be okay. Wow, this is a cool thing. And then this happens, and then they laugh at each other. You could play on that same notion that now that this thing has happened and the apple has hit your character who's on the left on the head, and you could do the same thing where we see a little bit closer, like, hey, don't laugh at me, or whatever the nonverbal is. You're going to get your reward, quote unquote, too, something like that. So that's what I see. The board is drawn really well. I think you would maybe want to go in and put some tone on the panels that you're still working on, right? Nada, yes, Nada?
Yes.
Yeah, it's looking really good. Really, really good.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to refresh. Did anyone just upload? Anybody?
I did maybe a couple minutes ago.
Rachel? And that was to this one, okay.
I actually uploaded my sketchbook.
You uploaded what?
My sketchbook.
Who was that? I didn't see the name pop up.
Randy.
Randy? And what folder was it in?
I think it was May 18th. I mean,
All right.
you could do this first and do mine last.
All right, I'll let you tell me where it is here in just a minute. Okay, title card, shot 1, shot 2. Little gnome guy. Okay, your characters are established. And 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this works better. This works better that we start here and then camera moves over to the left to see that those are their targets, okay. And then, okay. Okay, so Rachel, I think that this is all working pretty good. One thing that's kind of missing here is that it's easy for your audience to understand that this character cuts this target in half. But I think that you missed the opportunity to show it right here. You're going to hear animators and storyboard artists tell you that the thing that you should be doing is showing, not telling. And so I think that you could use one more panel right here of showing this action. Just this is the anticipation, and bring that sword right through and show us what the camera sees when this target is cut in half in a mid shot. And then the same thing goes for this guy. So he's kind of apprehensive, he's worried, he's running, he comes up to it, he's going to do his thing and show it in like 17B as well. Right? Because the sword is just, does he just totally miss it, or does it bounce off of it? He misses it.
Yeah, he misses it and
He
it kind
misses it.
of goes down to the ground.
All right, so you could do that thing where he does the cartoon swing and he spins all the way around before he falls.
Okay.
All right, then the gnome. So I think that you need a closer view of the gnome when he face palms. And I think you should stay close in panel 21, because now he's like, hey, Richie, let's go. Richie, stop playing with the flowers, right? And so this is kind of a non sequitur here. Why is so the gnome is like trying to get this character's attention, but all of a sudden we go back to your first two characters. Why do we do this in panel 27?
It's because it comes up again. I was kind of changing around the order of some of them. And I kind of didn't know maybe what the best sequence of shots would be to kind of communicate that they're all distracted.
Well, I think that what might work better here is if you imagine drawing a lot more than what you need. And so these two, right, are actually over here, right?
Yeah.
She's just like, hey, what the hell, Marco, right? And he's like, oh, I got distracted. So this is him. You know, he's kind of dejected. He's got his sword, right? And so, and then the trees are over here. And so they're over here arguing. And I think that what might work is if you start here on position A and then pan over to show this rather
Okay.
than just cutting. I think that makes it really clear that it's the same shot. And they've just started arguing, and then this is a cut.
Okay.
But I think that what is a little confusing is that your gnome is already like, he's like, hey, you know, is he trying to instruct this character to use the cannon?
I guess it was a sword thing. You suggested drawing something really exaggerated on that like whiteboard, but I didn't really know exactly what to draw.
Oh, shoot, okay. Let me just run through the final frames right here, because I think I have a pretty good suggestion for you. All right, so technically the villain wins, right?
Yeah.
Does he win by just not dying?
Yeah. I was kind of like going for like he's not exactly like evil. It's just kind of like a feud, so it's not really like a big deal that he wins kind of thing.
Right. Well, I think that you have your gnome pointing to a cannon. So so that suggested that this character should have a cannon somewhere. And so that if you have your main establishing shot, the cannon can be like here. We don't need to see it. And we don't need to see it here. But I think that as soon as we get the mid shot of the plan, that we can see this cannon. And I think that what would help here is if you're not just technically in a front view here, it might work better for you if you bring him into a 3/4 for this panel 22 and just kind of set it up so that so this is the board, and this is your gnome character.
Okay.
And he's pointing over here, and it doesn't have to be that crazy perspective, just something like that. And so this character here is more 3/4. He's just kind of standing there, and you can use this whole sequence, but I think that what you want to do is you want to fit this 21B right here, where you establish that the character is standing there and that he does in fact have a cannon. Let me clean this up just a little bit. So let me think. You've got the. I'm trying to think about the composition, and not be like completely obvious. So if the cannon was like right here, something like that, and then your character is here, and then he's just messing around with the butterfly. So this is the butterfly. And you might even have like the fire stick in his hand that he's supposed to use for lighting the cannon in his hand. So that might work.
Okay.
Try something like this. Even if you were to like come into this shot here, and he's like, he face palms, and then he comes up here and he gestures with his hand to the cannon, and you cut to an extreme close-up of the stick, both pointing at the cannon and tapping the cannon. It's like, hey, Marco, you're next. You're gonna blast him with this cannon, right? And then so you do this. You put this right here, and then you can cut back to his little interaction and basically a close-up of the butterfly. But I think that this then becomes important.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave that.
Should I put that maybe in that very, very first establishing shot as well?
Well, yeah, I
then?
think you can. It might just be a little small, but I think that yeah, it's going to be really small if you put it right here, or even if you put it right here, it's still going to be a little small. I think just for continuity's sake, you can. You could even put it right here, right? It doesn't have to be on his left. It can be just right closer to the plan. And it doesn't need to be here. But I think that once you get to this panel 21B, that this makes sense.
Okay.
That it is there. All right, then okay, so let me get out of this for just a second. So I think that what you should think about here is that the gnome has already face palmed. And here now he's going to be being really specific. Hey, dude, get the cannon, fire it up and shoot it. Let's go. We're practicing here, right? And so, like I said, the close-up. And so you may want to consider what the gnome is doing for these two panels, 26 and 29, because at this point, he's just given up. He could actually be sitting on the ground with a black cloud above his head and just going, oh, I don't know what's going on with these kids, right? Or he could turn his back to us and be, look at me in the monitor, right? He's like, he's not even face palming. He's got a migraine. He's so pissed off.
Okay.
So the villain walks up behind these two characters, these two heroes in panel 31, and he continues to go by them.
Yeah, they
Right,
don't even notice.
So, right, they don't even notice. So I think you need to either show a second pose that this character here has gone and gone through it, right? This would be pose A, and this would be pose B, or just another panel of like 31B, where these two characters are, everything's still the same, but now the villain character is over here.
Okay.
So that you can see that the pass behind them. And now he's going over here. You cut back to here. That's fine. You could do that. And then the gnome gets startled, right?
Yeah.
So the gnome points a stick at the villain. So the heroes are all just, and so he face palms again. All right, so I think that what you would want here, and in traditional storytelling, there's a thing called the Holy Grail. There's a thing called the elixir of life. And so what is going on is that the gnome is trying to teach these heroes how to fight. You know, use a sword or use a spear, or how to use a cannon, and they completely and totally fail. The bad guy comes in, and the bad guy, just because the bad guy comes in, I don't think that that's quite enough of him winning. So it's good that the bad guy wins. I like that the bad guy's winning. But I think that what you may want to do is in each one of these panels here that has the planned out board, right? Is that you work in some sort of like championship cup, right? You do kind of like this thing. It's like one of those winner's cup, right? You know, something like that, right? And it's sitting on this little box right here. And that's what's at stake. You know, all of your hero characters are being distracted. And then that's what the villain does. He comes in and he just goes, oh, this is mine. And he can take it and leave. And that's all he has to do. You know, that's a great way for the villain to end.
Okay.
I mean, there's other things that you can do too, like the villain could kill both of these characters with the sword that he dropped. You know, he can flip the cannon and blow this character away, but you don't want to do that. I think it might be just simple fun to have him come in and just take the little chalice and leave. Shoot. And then the gnome isn't face falling anymore. He's distraught. In this shot here, he could just fall to his knees and go, why?
Okay.
All right, so it looks good, I think. And the other thing that I would recommend is you see the value of tone. And so, and I don't know how cleanly I'll be able to do this, if at all. But just go in there and try to give all of your characters some sort of tone so that they pop off the background.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna add some tones to the trees because I think it
No,
like adding
don't do
them-
it to the trees, do it to your characters.
Okay.
Your characters are the ones that need to pop. And it's good to, like, if you go and finish all of your boards and then go through all of it and then go back in and say, okay, my villain is just going to be, this is supposed to be a gray, so that he's going to be a medium gray, and then you just go all through the boards and just paint all the villains a medium gray, and then use the same kind of tone for her and the same kind of red for the gnome or whatever it is, that kind of deal. All right, it's looking good though. Thank you, Rachel. All right, so Randy, you said you had something for me today?
Yeah, I have my sketchbook and I'm about to submit my thumbnails.
All right, you want to tell me where you put them?
The May 18th folder. sketchbook May 18th.
This one, the sketchbook?
Oh, hold on, it's really hard for me to see.
All right, Luis, I see this. These are good. Thank you, Luis. Saw that one. Saw that one. Chloe, sketchbook. The beginning of some backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's always a good thing. Remember your atmospheric perspective. So let these mountains, as they get further away from you, become lighter and lighter and lighter. It's the rules of atmospheric perspective.
Yeah, I was just testing out
Okay,
some colors and some brushes, so I haven't really like refined it at all.
okay.
Thanks though.
All right, we saw that one. All right, Randy, this is what you were looking at?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, keep drawing. It's good to draw. I appreciate your. Oh, it's okay. Okay, see. Yep. Thank you, Randy. All right. Is there anyone else who had anything for me for today?
I'm about to submit my thumbnails right now.
I didn't see who was talking. Who was talking?
Randy.
I can't see your name. Hold on a second. Was that Randy again?
Yes.
And so where is it?
I haven't uploaded it yet. I'm doing it right now as we speak.
All right. So should I wait just a moment?
Yes.
Okay. And where are you putting it? In the sketchbook or into?
Where would you like me to put it?
What is it that actually that you're uploading?
The BG thumb.
Yeah, put it in this folder right here,
Hold on.
this one, and tell me when it's up.
Was it thumb? BG thumb.
Actually, I'm gonna go get a drink of water. Sit tight. I'll be right back. All right, Randy, is it in there? Randy?
Yeah, it's in there.
It's in there, okay. Okay, so this is continuing from last week. Okay. So I think that visually I'm just a little confused. The two robots are walking and he slips. And the ice, I think you need to develop how the ice cream cone lands on his head just a little bit more, a few more drawings in here. And then you've got this fight happening here. And I think that you're still, it's kind of hard to tell. How big is this drawing that you're drawing digitally? Is it like 4 inches across?
I think so.
Because I think that you've got these characters. This needs a little bit more development right here. That these two characters are going inside the cake store. Is that where they're going, or did they go across the street into the bank?
Oh, that my map is missing, but
Well, it looks like they're fighting right here, right? So here's a couple of
wait,
things to
I'm
think
missing a
about.
few.
Here's a couple of things to think about. First of all, you need to number your panels. So it looks like you started, but each panel needs to be numbered. And as soon as you do that, and I say, you know what, you need a panel 3, and you need a panel, this is 4, and you need a panel 5 to show this action actually happening. And remember that this is kind of like one little weird subplot, because this is your main action. These two characters here, are these two characters the robots fighting?
Yes.
Oh, so the robot is walking the dog. Okay. So I think that what's happening is you made these too small. So you've made these full drawings look like thumbnails, and that's just a little confusing. So these two bad guys are already in the bank, right?
Yes.
All right, and so we see that the cartoon fight, and remember we talked a little bit about that last week. That's going on while these two are already doing their thing. I think that you want to avoid having one character stand with one line of action and doing something, and then having another character in the same shot doing the same thing. That's really confusing. I think that you should stage the shot better so that there's a definite visible thing that this is the crank, that this is the door, and that all the loot is inside it or whatever, you know. And then you have like one character who's getting the loot, and then the other characters over here kind of grabbing the loot from him and putting it on a table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think because these two are twinning, that's not the best idea. All right, then, so this is a non sequitur here, that the two robots that are fighting come in. Is that the way I pick up on it?
Yeah.
So they enter the bank and then continue their fighting, and then they accidentally rescue everybody. They accidentally tie up the two villains, and there's paw prints all over the place. But the robots continue fighting, right?
Yeah.
And then they wind up in the junkyard.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, because of all of these things that happen and that the fighting continues, I think that what you need is you have to really, really develop this in terms of the even a few close-ups where, you know, this character here is just watching with astonishment of the ice cream cone, and then it lands on his head, right? And it starts to drip. I developing that and doing like a POV shot where this character's like looking up in the sky and he sees the ice cream cone tumbling over and over, right? You know what I mean? And it's leaving little bits. It's leaving little bits of ice cream behind it. And then you can do like a shot of him from the ice cream's point of view where he's like, what? Right? Do you understand what this is?
Yeah.
This is like the ice, and these are his eyebrows. What? And then you cut to you cut back and forth there. I think you want to develop this action here a bit more so that then you end up with this guy like furious, right? So now he's just like, "Rrrr," right? You know, I'm drawing him like a dog because that's kind of how mad he is. You know, this is his eyebrow down, "Rrrr," and there's even steam coming off of it so that it melts the ice cream really fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even to the point where you can like keep this same pose and the ice cream just completely melts away. And it just leaves like a trail of steam behind it and there's nothing left because he's so mad. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then he takes an anticipation and starts the fight. So you're missing like every time I make like a little mark like this is another panel description of either missing a panel or a pose in order to define what the action is. So this guy here, you know, we really don't see him until his face until right here. So when he's getting mad like this and all this is happening, I think that then you can cut back to this guy going, uh-oh, right? Let me see what that guy looks like. You know, he's like, uh-oh. You know, it's something that, you know, this zoom tool isn't the best tool to draw, but, you know, you get the idea, uh-oh. And let us feel what he's thinking, uh-oh. And then you can cut to a mid shot of the character taking an anticipation and just jumping on him to start this fight, right? So you have to start this fight. I don't think that you can just go walking, slipping, allude to this, show it just a little bit here, and then have all this fighting. You need to develop this with these kind of drawings like that. All right, did you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah. Hold on. Okay, I got it.
All right, I'm going to refresh this. All right, did I miss anybody? Anybody got anything for today that I didn't see? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to show you how to do an animatic here in a little bit. So let us take, what is it? 7:38. So come back at 8:05. Come back at 8:05 and I'll show you how to make an animatic. 8:05.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Chloe, are you still there? Chloe?
Yes, I'm right here.
Could you email me? Have you already emailed me at my Yahoo address?
I think I have,
Let me just
but if
check.
n-
I don't have you in there. What is your
Okay.
email?
it's just Chloe Kim and then at the my.smccd.
Put your email in the chat.
Yeah, here. Sorry, give me a second. My laptop is the wrong mode for this.
All right, everybody. Resume recording. Just a little bit of background for you. And I think that this is not just a little bit of trivia that I like to do sometimes, but in context of what I'm going to show you, what we're going to do, it becomes really important to understand how easy it is to do an animatic these days. In the beginning of animation in 1929, when Disney was putting together Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all the way through the middle 70s, we didn't have videotape. So if the animators wanted to figure out what their animation looked like, they actually had to shoot their shots on film. They had to take their animation that they've just drawn all week long, and they'd get the camera operator to shoot it on film, and they would they'd take a negative, and then they would do a positive print, and then they would show it on the wall. And those were called dailies, just like dailies. And then the animator would then get a sense of what his timing, what her sense of motion was looking like within the particular shot. Sometimes the studios had their own production facilities, and they could do that pencil test in just a few hours. Sometimes they had to send it to a processing facility, and it came back the next day. But as we moved into videotape, which was right around 1970 somewhere, depending on the studio, then you had the ability to just put your pencil test under the camera, shoot it on videotape, and see it immediately. And this changed everything. This changed the speed of what animation was looking like. Going all the way back, Disney, during the production of Snow White, realized that he was getting into trouble, that he was running out of time, he was running out of money. It was kind of a sense of panic. He almost, quote unquote, lost Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs multiple times, as many as 5 different times, either running out of money or running out of time. But by the time he got to Pinocchio, he realized that there was this real command of making sure the storyboards were actually working. And in order to get them working, they were creating a pencil test of the storyboards. That's basically what an animatic is. It's a pencil test of the storyboards, shot to time. And so ever since that time, ever since 1950, 51, animators have always been required to slug the storyboard. That's the bottom right, where the animator calculates how much time they need in that shot for the action that's going on. Camera operator would do the same exact thing. They would take the storyboards and they would shoot the storyboards under camera for the amount of frames needed, and then process it just like it was a film now instead of just a pencil test, and get a real good idea of what the animation was looking like, what the story was actually looking like. So we didn't have animatics all throughout the history of animation. I'm pretty sure that there's no animatic of Snow White. It really kind of took over during Cinderella and Pinocchio, that era right there. Cinderella, Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, sure. All of that, and all the shorts that went along with it. So what this is a tool. It's interesting that the work that an animator does, character design, concept design, background design, thumbnails, storyboards, all of that goes in your portfolio. But and when the pencil tests come out, that it's like, yeah, those things go on your show reel. The pencil test that you did has more weight to it than what the final animation looks like in traditional or digital ink and paint. So having said that, the animatic is a tool and it's used internally, but it really doesn't go on your show reel. There's really no place for it because it's just one of those things that we use in the process to make sure that everything is going correctly. So having said that, here's one way to do this. There are 25 different ways of doing a storyboard, an animatic. After Effects. You can do an animatic in Photoshop. You can do an animatic in Maya. You can do an animatic in lots of different places. You need a timeline and your drawings. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set up a file in InDesign because that's my layout tool. Now, remember that we talked about this a little bit, but now it becomes really important. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to annotate this for everybody to see. And so we're going to start out by reminding ourselves that our main composition was 16 by 9. And if these were inches, that would just be way too big. And so that translates to 1.77777. So if you take 16 and divide it by 9, you get this number. And the same thing is true that if you divide these numbers in half. And so if you do 8 by 4.5, it's the same aspect ratio. It's the same ratio. If you do 4 by 2 and 1/8, it's the same ratio. So this is good for us. This is pretty good for us. There's also another one that fits in here right cleanly, and that's 7 by 4, I think it is. Let me check the math on that. So 7 divided by 4 equals 1.75, and that's really close. That's close enough for us. And so you can use any number of different measurements. This one is just a little big right here. 8 by 4.5, that's just like a little big. 7 by 4 is a little big as well. Put an open circle right there. If you were doing professional boards and you were drawing at 7 by 4, this is good. But for us, what we want to do is we want to set up a document that's 4 by 2 point, I think it's 125. Let me double check that math. So we take, in our calculator, we take 1 and divide it by 8 equals 1.25. And so you add 0.125 to 2, and this is our ratio. So I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget. You want 4 by 2.125. All right, so we're going to clear this. We're going to clear this. Oops, I have to put this away. All right, and we're going to say in this InDesign file, we want this to be 4 inches wide by 2.125. And that's inches. We don't need to say whether it's in landscape or portrait because this will automatically create it. We're going to guess by using Annika's boards that we have 30 pages. So I'm just going to say 30 pages and say, okay. And now we've got what looks like this weird thing. And so I'm going to zoom out of this just a little bit. And this is our ratio. So if we want to make sure that this is the correct ratio, it's looking a little funny right now. We're going to go to File, Document Setup, and we're going to just double check 4 by 2.125. So something is making it look stretched. Something is making it so it looks a little wide right now. Let me check this. Yeah, it's just looking a little odd, that's all. All right, so what we have though is we have, I'm going to slide this out of the way. In my InDesign file, I have all these pages, and I don't want these pages lined up like a book, so I'm going to change this so that they are not facing each other. I'm going to say okay. So now we've just got a stack of 30 pages that are all 4 by 2 and 2.125. So I have this document. I'm going to save this document. This is going to be animatic, and I'm going to set it to the desktop and say save it, and then I'm going to put it away. One of the reasons why I'm going to do this is because I'm going to put it in this folder. Is that InDesign is an organizational layout tool, and you always have to be careful where your files are living with InDesign. And I'll explain further here in just a moment, but I want to put it inside this folder here because that's where Annika's board is. So you can see it right there. So I'm going to now reopen this by just double clicking on it. And remember, I already saved it. So the first thing I'm going to do is import Annika's movie, Annika's board. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find it. And I'm just going to say open, and I'm going to say place. So now this is coming in at a really, really good size. This is coming in so that the way Annika drew her storyboard panels, they're just a little bit smaller than the actual stage. So if I show my work group mode, all I have to do is get this up just a little bit in order for it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my transformation tool. I'm going to hit Shift, and I'm going to just make this bigger. I'm going to move it out of the way. I'm going to make it bigger. And I need to do that maybe one more time in order to get the drawing to fit inside the frame. All right, so there's 2 theories right here. The first theory is that you take the storyboard panel, and you can see what I'm doing here is that I'm tucking it in and around this black line here, which is the final size of our board. So if I hit my work group mode, that's what my first page looks like. So this is what everything else. So the first thing is to just show the images, just to show the drawings. That's why these slugs, the shot number, the panel number, the screen direction, the slug is outside the storyboard panel because you don't want to see it. The other way to do this is to actually include it. If you had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of story panels and you wanted to say, hey, what panel is that? Then sometimes you want to keep all this information or part of that information inside the animatic. For us, we're going to just use this one. We're going to use the one where it's just open, and if I hit my work group mode, that's what it looks like. All right, everyone okay with this? And again, this is done in InDesign, and there's any number of different ways to do it. So let me run through the best way to do this, and then I'm going to show you what happens to it, and then I'll explain what it actually is going to look like when we get our JPEGs. And then I'll give you another hint at that point. So this is page 1. What I'm going to do right now is just copy this at its size. So I just hit copy. I'm going to click on page 2 and just hit paste. Now, when I do this, you can see that it's coming in a weird place, right? So I'm going to Command Z this. I'm going to Command Z this. I'm going to Command Z this. There we go. And I'm going to paste in place. And so if you have InDesign, that function is edit, paste in place. And I'm sorry, but Shift, Alt, Command V is not a shortcut. So I just used the long cut. All right, then I'm going to remember we're on page 2 here. And I'm going to just take this and I'm going to grab it and I'm going to slide it over. So this is my page 2. And I might have to zoom out and transform this just a little bigger so that it fits inside the panel just a little more cleanly, something like that. And then I'm going to come back out again, right here. Again, my work group mode is that. So that's what my story panel looks like. So now I'm going to hit the select key and hit copy. And now InDesign is displaying this PDF, but it's much too big for us to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 3 and we're going to paste in place again. And then we're going to shift this over to page 3. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 4 and we're going to hit paste in place again, and we're going to remember where we were. So we had, in this shot, we had the shot 3, which is the window. And sometimes the best way to do this is to go back and open up this PDF so that you can see where you were. We have 3 panels across and just a whole bunch of panels that go all the way down. Just to always remind you so you can tab back and forth. We're going to go back to InDesign, back to page 4, and this page 4 needs to be this one. So we're just going to grab this, hold it for a moment, and slide it right here. All right, and then we're going to hit copy. We're going to go to page 5, hit paste in place. Now we're going to grab it and wait for a moment and slide it over to page 5. And we're going to copy it. And we're going to go to page 6. And we're going to paste it in place. And we're going to grab it and wait for a moment and slide it over to page 6. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 7 and we're going to hit just copy in place again. And remember that now we need to go all the way over here. So we're going to take this and put 7 right here. And we're going to copy it. We're going to page 8. And we're going to paste it in place. And we're going to slide this over to page 8. All right, and then we're going to go to page 9. We're going to copy that, go to page 9, paste it in place, and then just slide this over to page 9. All right, so that is all of the pages that got inputted with this placing. And so we've got our first 9 pages, but you can see that Annika has an additional 1, 2, 3 more pages, at least for right now. I mean, she might have more. So what we need to do is we need to extract these pages. So we're going to go to export the PDF, and I want them to be JPEGs. And it's not letting me do that. So I'm going to close this. I want to Well, one way of doing this is to just export these as singular pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize this. And so I'm going to say, it's already a PDF. I don't need to create this. So let's export the PDF. Nope, I don't want to do that. Hold on. All right, so this should work. If I export it to a JPEG, it should work. So I'm just going to say XC animatic and say save. All right, so then I want to let it do its thing, and I'm going to go back to that folder and make sure that it did the right thing. So now underneath here, we have the same file name, and we have 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, and 4 pages. So we're using the original PDF as page 1. So we don't need this one, but we need these 3. So we need to isolate those. InDesign will not let you import a multiple page PDF. It's just a static image thing. So what we have right now is, we're going to just take a look at panel 8. And you can see that Annika stopped writing, did not include the shot number on these because it's supposed to be a pan. So that's all panel 7 and it's all shot 6. So that's fine, that's good, we can handle that. But so now what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 10 and hit import again and pick this one. And we're going to do that same thing again. We're going to zoom out. We're going to move this over. We're going to transform it up, grab and hold it. We're going to move it over. We're going to bring it up. Keep going. That's about where we need it to be. All right, so now we're going to copy this, go to page 11, paste it in place, grab it, move it over, go to page 12, paste it in place, grab it, move it all the way over, go to page 13, paste it in place, move it up now. And we're going to continue to lay these out. So copy this, paste it in place, grab it, move it over. You can copy it if you want. Paste it in place. Put this here. Go to 16, paste it in place. Now we're down here. Copy it. Page 17. Paste it in place. Slide it over. Copy it. Page 18. Paste it in place. Slide it over. All right, so now she has included a bit of camera directions here on this shot. And we'll see if we can get all of this in there from shot 1 to shot 2 to shot 3. In order to do this, we probably want to scale this down so that all of that fits into the story panel. hit the work group. Okay, so that'll work right there. Page 19, paste this one. It's coming at its hero size. Grab it, move it over, transform it up. So basically what you're doing is you're laying it out. Copy, paste it in place, grab it, slide it over. Next page, paste it in place, grab it, slide it all the way over. Next page, paste in place and move it up. Copy it. Next page, paste it in place, grab it, move it over. Next page, paste in place, grab it, move it all the way over. All right, and then next page down here. Paste it in place, grab it and move it up. Okay, copy it, paste it in place, move it over. Copy it, paste it in place, move it over. Next page. Now we need to bring in the fourth one. All right, so on this one, we have the bird is actually coming in first, and then we're gonna zoom from the bird into this one. So we'll have to see if there's a clever way of getting this camera move. We'll see here in just a second. I'm gonna copy this. We're gonna paste this and slide it over. And then we have one more page. So I'm gonna bring in a whole bunch more pages here. All right, I could forget where I was. This is page 29. I'm going to go to page 30. I'm going to hit paste in place. And we've already got the bird, so we used to slide this one all the way over. Paste in place. This one comes up. And the other way to do this is to draw a different storyboard for every single JPEG that you have. But you don't want to do that. You're just doing your first animatic. And it'll all make sense to you here in just a moment, I promise you. All right, this one gets slid up. And I'm not being like, I'm not explaining every single little move I do with my mouse and keyboard, but that's okay. All right, and then we have one more. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to paste it in place. And I believe that was our last frame. So let's go back, look at the PDF, and that is our last one. So if we had something that was like 20, 30 actual pages that have 9 storyboards on them a piece, you know, that's hundreds That's hundreds of frames. But right now, I think we're okay. So we could just go up here to page number 1, and we could hit our work group mode, and then we can just kind of flash through this and say page down and get an idea of what the actual aesthetics are looking like. And so what I'm looking for is something like where I see the edge of the storyboard, or if something is misaligned or anything like that. This just gives me an idea of what those images all look like. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go to this page, and I'm going to notice that this says I am on page 36. So I make a note to myself, it goes from 1 to 36. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at this folder right here. And I'm going to see that this animatic is living inside this folder. And again, there are a number of different ways to do this. This is just one way. But now that we've got this laid out, it took us just like 30 minutes or so. I'm going to export this as JPEGs. So I'm going to pick JPEG, and I'm going to pick a different name here. I'm just going to write AE for Annika underscore 01. And I believe what it's going to do is it's going to change these numbers to as it exports it. So we're just going to say save, and then we're going to go range from page 1 to 36. And these are coming in at 600 DPI. That's my default. And just say, okay, it's going to take a moment for this to happen. And there it's written all the pages. Now let's go back and look at that folder again. So now instead of page 1, 2, 3, 4, it's got page 01. So what we could have done is we could have just said page 0, and then these numbers would have been a little bit easier to see, but that's okay. We still have this. So those are our page numbers right here. And what I can do here just on my home computer is just make them color coded green, so that I know I'm looking at the animatic, and they're saved. They're in that folder already. All right, so now we talked about this a little bit, but the animators at Kenyatta College were recommended a year ago to use this tool called Rough Animator. And it is a $5 application, and it works pretty good. The drawing tools are friendly. You can master this program in just like 20 minutes. It's really easy to use. So we're going to use this. I have this already queued up. We're going to go to Rough Animator. And I already have it set for 16:9. So on this layer number 1 right here, I'm going to bring everything to my first layer. It has 8 frames in it. That's good for what's called a beat. In animation, 8 frames is a beat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say File, Import Image, and I'm going to go find that file on my desktop and hit the very first image, just the first image, and hit open. There it is. So now you can see that it's not quite jiving with the aspect ratio. So I'm going to just take this and get this up just a little bit. So somewhere between the math in InDesign or this tool, it's off just a little bit. If I was doing this in After Effects, it would be easier to handle. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this zoom down just a little bit in my timeline, and I'm going to add a drawing after it, and it's going to come in for 8 frames as well. And that's a good place to start, is 8 frames. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to do this. There's no way to really automate it in this program. What you have to do is pay attention that you are on drawing number 2. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to scoot it up a little bit. Just make sure that it fits inside there. If I need to get one side or the other because there's a little bit more information, I'll do that. All right, and I'm going to do this and be just a little quiet because it's really easy to lose track of where you are trying to do this and talk at the same time. This is drawing 4. I am hitting the shift button to constrain proportions. This is drawing 5. Oh, by the way, when you're doing it in this application, in Rough Animator application, you have to do the sizing as you are importing the file, because once you hit OK, you can't go back in and do it again. So that's one of the strange things about this application. It might be a little bit different for PC people, but I have a Mac. This is drawing number 6. Next, drawing 10. Drawing 11. Drawing 12. Shift to constrain proportion. Drawing 13. Drawing 14. Drawing 15. Drawing 16. Drawing 17. Drawing 18. Drawing 19. Drawing 20. Drawing 21. Drawing 22. Drawing 23. Drawing 24. Drawing 25. Drawing 26. Drawing 27. Drawing 28. Drawing 29. Drawing 30. I'll pause 1 second. I have to answer my door. Hold on 1 second. Okay. This one. Okay. Tomorrow? Good, good. Thank you. Good. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so I believe this was drawing 30, so we have to do drawing 31. Drawing 32. Drawing 33. Drawing 34. Drawing 35. And drawing 36. Oops, just rendering 36. All right, so I'm going to save this and it's going to be untitled. So we're going to say a animatic and it's going to go in that same folder. And so now it should be good. If I go to the first frame of this and then just hit play, it's going to play every single one of these frames at the same exact duration. And it's going to look ridiculous because that's 1/3 of a second. Watch. So this is not an animatic yet. This is just what's technically known as a boardomatic. That would be that if you gave this to an editor and the editor saw that there was a title card and that each subsequent frame was coming into his editing, her editing suite at the exact same duration of time, that means that the editor has to go back into the JPEGs or the PDF and discover what the slug was for each one of those panels. So Annika hasn't done her slug, so we're just going to have to give and some kind of indication for what that slug is. This is the title card. Title cards are on for 2 seconds. There was this Hollywood adage that said that you add 2 seconds for every word if your audience is being asked to read, but I don't buy into that. You just take this and say, let's make this 2 seconds. So for this first frame right here, we're going to take this out to 48 frames. So we're just going to extend this to 48 frames, and that's 2 seconds. Now, normally with a establishing shot, we want to let this linger for as long as we need it to. So we're going to take this and we're going to say our title card was 2 seconds. We're going to let this be 1.5 seconds. So we're just going to say this is 32 frames. Now, one thing that you're going to want to do at the Nanomatic is kind of remember this. This is where we have an advantage of looking at the duration of each story panel in the timeline graphically, because you do not want any of these story panels to be the same duration and length, because then it'll just look like the boardomatic we just saw. So what do we have? We have the exterior shot of the castle. Then in this shot right here, we see a new cut to a window. This needs to establish our eye. We had a 1.5 seconds right here. Let's make this 38 frames just to make sure that it's different. So we'll make it 40 frames. We're starting to really get into looking at where the characters are. So now we see this is our first character shot. This character could be thinking, walking across the room, putting this thing in the locker and closing the locker. How long does that take? This could take 3 seconds. This could take 72 frames. So let's just take this and click it out to 72 frames. Don't be afraid of these numbers. You can always change them later. You have to imagine in your mind what this character is doing in that particular shot. So then this is part of it. The camera just cut to a different view. This does not need 72 frames. This can be just 18 frames because it's like almost like cutting on action. So we'll just take this up to 18 frames. And then this is leaving the room. So it's still the same scene. Now she's just leaving the room. So let's take this up to 20 frames. Just make sure that those numbers are all different. And now this character is walking. And so in this shot, they're walking and walking and walking. So Annika has kind of done the camera move for us. But let's give each one of these walking shots the same kind of duration. So let's give each one of those like 38 frames. Even the one in the middle could be a little different. We'll do this one for 30 frames. It's always nice if the duration is different. And we'll take this one to 38 frames. Now you can see that my timeline is starting to get really squinched down here. So I'm going to squinch this again. All right, now what's the character doing? She leaves the room, the bird flies. So this could be quick. It is a new scene, it's a new cut. So let's make sure that it reads. This was 32 frames. We don't have to be that quick. Let's just make this 24 frames, 1 complete second. And then this is the bird leaving here. I don't believe we have the ability to do keyframing and moving and zooming in this application. You just kind of have to imagine what's going on with this bird flying out. So if that bird's going to fly out for 2 seconds, we'll just take this to 48 frames. And I'm reading it right here where I'm clicking it. Let's leave that at 48 frames. That's 2 seconds. Do a zoom again on our timeline. All right, now this is a new shot. So again, we want this to read. Look at what's happening next. The character's leaving the room. So this is going to be a longer duration. So let's just take this up to 32 frames. And then let's make this one 18. That's a total of 40 for that complete shot. All right, and then this is a new cut. So we want to be able to make sure the audience can read this. Give it 32 frames at least. And again, don't be afraid of these numbers. This is a continuation of it. So let's make this one 2 beats, which is 16 frames. And then this is a continuation down the hallway, but with a different character here. It's jumping out of this position. So that's new to us. Let's make that 4 beats, which is 32 frames. And right now you can look down your timeline and see that each one of these is just a little different. That's what you want. All right, so that's standing up. This character pops out and stands up. So this is a continuation of that shot. So let's put this in at 16 frames. And then this is gonna, we can't animate this camera position 1, 2, and 3, but this is a pretty long shot. This is gonna need maybe 3 seconds, which is 72 frames. So let's just take that out. At least to 72 frames. Don't be afraid of that number. You're not animating it yet. All right, the next frame is a continuing walking down the hallway. This doesn't have to be very long. It could be just 16 frames. We might want to change that later, but let's take a look. All right, and then this is continuing. So make this 32 frames. And then continuing. This is a new shot establishing, so give that 48 frames, 2 seconds. Let's back off of that. Let's just make it 40. All right. Then they're going to come in. So that adds to the 40. So when they come in, let's just make this 2 beats. That's 16 frames. This is continuing. They're doing their thing with a camera move. Let's just use, we got 1 frame in there, 1 beat. Let's just do 1.5 beats. And now this is a close-up. It's technically a cut, so let's make this 24 frames. This is new establishing, so get your eye to figure out what's going on in the shot. Let's give this 32 frames. This is continuing, so we only need 2 beats, that's 16 frames. This is continuing as well, if I remember, so that's only 1 beat. Let's just leave that as it is. And now we have a new shot. This is the bird flying in from this position to this position. Now we might want to reverse those shots. We might want to put the bigger bird first and then this shot, but that's okay. This is a new shot. So we'll have 30 frames on that one. And then on this one, we'll have 30 frames, 38 frames, just to make it different. All right, and then we have the bird flying in, which is continuing of this shot. So we don't need a lot here. We can just have maybe 2 beats, 16 frames. Now this is new, establishing they're coming down the hallway. That's important. Was at least 32 frames. And they're continuing to walk here. So let's have this be 24 frames. Again, all these numbers should be different in order for it to read properly. This is an ECU. It's a new frame, it's a new cut. So let's take this one up to 38 frames. And the surprise. So this is the money shot. So that one needs as many frames as you can possibly give it. Yay! Happy birthday. And so let's just start with 48 frames. That's full 2 seconds. And then go here. So this is a revision of this shot. So we don't need a whole lot of frames. Let's try 2 beats just to start with. And then just her last frame was all of them together. One thing that you want to do is you want to let that, at least the last frame, read as good as possible. 24 frames. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a drawing after this, and I'm gonna paint the shot black. That ends the clip, so that when we make our movie, when we're looking at this, we're gonna save this and play it. This is the first time through. We have 1,114 frames, which is about, which is just under 50 seconds or so. Let's see what we got. This is our first animatic. You ready, Annika? Is anybody listening to me? Junho's with me. All right, let's look. Let's take a look. And end on black. All right, does everyone see how I did that? That is how you make an animatic. So let me take questions from the class. Annika, did you see what I did to your storyboard?
Yeah,
What do you think?
pretty cool.
Yeah, did you think it was gonna work?
I guess I was a little worried my boards wouldn't be clear enough, but
No, I think they read
Seemed
pretty
okay.
well. So if I go through this and look at it one more time, the next thing that I might be looking for is, yeah, that's weird right there. I don't know why that artifact is happening. It just could just be this application. Now what I'm going to be looking for continuity, I want to be making sure that my camera's in the right place, that the action has enough time for each one of those shots. And if I need to, I start stretching things out to give shots time, or I start shrinking things down to speed things up a little bit. But your animatic is your first look at what your animation is going to look like. That might be a little fast right there. But that's how you make an animatic. And you can't make an animatic without having your boards. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. All right, does anyone have any questions about doing it this way? This is really quick. I think that the trick here is that if you don't have a layout tool like InDesign, that remember that the one thing that you're going for, the one thing that you're looking for is a sequence of JPEGs. That's your whole cue. It's getting the sequence of JPEGs and them being numbered correctly, so that all you have to do is pay a little bit of attention to where they get logged into your animation application, and then you're good to go. Then you can make your first animatic. All right, does everyone see what we're doing there? Lauren, you haven't said a word all evening.
I saw. Yeah.
Have you ever done an has anyone ever done an animatic before?
I've done one before.
What application did you use?
I
Did you use After Effects?
think it was
Premiere?
After Effects. Yeah, it was in
You
After
can use
Effects.
Director, Final Cut Pro. Animatics can be done in anything that has a timeline in it. Like I said, if you have an animation timeline in Photoshop, you can do an animatic in Photoshop. But for me, the thing that is important is addressing the idea of time and saying that when we were in our application, no two shots right next to each other were the same duration of time. That was the whole trick about it. And now I'm just wondering something funny that happened when we painted this black. I have some intuition that it painted this gray. Yeah, that's weird, huh? It's being all did you funny on me? Sorry, Annika.
Maybe you need to add another layer.
No, I don't know what it did. It doesn't like the well, this is just a pencil test application, and it probably doesn't like being this long. It's very incorrect to assume that any application will allow you to paint one image and also another image at the same time. It's the same digital philosophy that you cannot copy and delete a file at the same time. It's one of those unwritten rules in, oops, I think I just closed my window. It's one of those unwritten rules about the world of computers. You cannot copy and delete a file at the exact same time. Those are two discrete operations. All right, so if everyone was looking at it, it is a competency for this class to put it together in animatic. I would like to see if anyone has this rough animator application, I'd like to see an animatic. It makes it easier to evaluate for going into next week for what your board actually looks like. So so you just come out of here and you say, I'm going to just, remember that I did that in just under an hour. And so in Rough Animator, you just say File, Export a QuickTime movie. And then you just make yourself a QuickTime movie. It goes in that same folder. And that you can just put one folder, one file in that digital folder and you're done.
Is that what we're turning in for our final?
That would be your final. And I know that not everyone has the ability to do that, but this is what I'm looking for is an animatic. And remember for the rest of your lives, what is important is looking at that storyboard frame and imagining that the animation or the motion is already there. What is that character doing? They're picking up a sword and they're taking an anticipation and they're going across the screen and they're smacking that target and they're cutting the target in half and then they stop and look at it. How long did that action take? If you get out your cell phone and you time that action just by thinking, start, go, and walk and cut and stop, hit your stopwatch, then translate the seconds from your stopwatch into frames. And here, I'll do this for you right now. It might make a ton of sense to you in that I'm going to go to the last frame where we have black, and I'm just going to draw over this. So one of the things that you want to consider is how to time things. And let's just do this as a normal setup. If I have 8 frames, that equals 1/3 of a second. If I have 16 frames, that's 2/3 of a second. If I have 24 frames, that equals 1 second. Then I add these two together. So if I have 32 frames, that's 1 1/3 second. Add it again. If I have 40 frames, that is 1 2/3 seconds. If I have 48 frames, that equals 2 seconds. So these are frames and these are seconds. Now you can break this up even further and you can say, what if I want the animation to be on a half? And so I say 12 frames equals 1/4 of a second, right? And 18 frames equals 3/4 of a second. Then you can do the other part. So what is 1 1/4? So 1 1/4 is 30 frames. 30 frames equals 1 1/4. And so if I want 1 1/2, that is 24 plus 12, which is 36. 36 equals 1 1/2. And then you say, well, 1 3/4. I don't know if you need this one, because this stuff up here is fast. If you go backwards and you say, if I have a frame that is 6 frames long, that is fast. So if you have a fight sequence, and if you're cutting panels at 6 frames, remember, this is frames, this is seconds, then this is fast. That's super fast. You're not going to cut anything lower than 6 frames. You have a battle sequence and you have characters that are beating each other with swords and cannons and stuff. This is super fast right here. Super fast. If you have 2.5 seconds and 3 seconds and 4 seconds, those are easy, right? So 3 seconds is 72 frames and 4 seconds is 96 frames. 2.5 is 48 plus 12, which is 50, which is 60 frames. And that's all the timing you're going to need. If you're doing your slugging for your board, you can slug it in terms of frames or seconds. Now, the reason that there's a little box right here with the line through it is because it's from an old cinema thing where the animators wanted to make sure that this was reading as the frame. You see some studios say, this is 36 frames, and they use the X instead of this little box, which is usually just like this. Not very often like that. But the problem is that the studios who use this X for 32 frames, they get into trouble when they get into their camera sheets and they have an effects column. And so they have Bugs Bunny, which is always B, and Daffy Duck, which was always D, and Elmer, which was always E. And then if there's any effects, it was F, unless it was Foghorn Leghorn. And then it was FX for effects. And it could be really confusing if you're saying, I want my effects for the water splash to be 18 frames long, and it was 18X. Those studios got wise and left the X to the animation and used this to mean frames. So you see it in different studios that X means frames and a box with a line through it mean frames. Again, this is a film gate from a movie camera. Film gates are always at an angle. But there's your chart right there. When you're slugging your board, this is excellent. No 2 frames should ever be the same duration when they're next to each other. And this is fast motion up here. And then as you go down here, this is slower. And so somewhere in here is you have to pace your animatic. In the world of cinema, if stuff was happening on a story arc, in the traditional world of Campbellian mythology, then you have Act 1 and you have rising action, And then in Act 1, you have falling action. And then in Act 2, you have rising action. And then the hero meets the villain and they fight. And then you have falling action. And then in Act 3, you have to go home and there's rising action and falling action. And so this is intensity on the chart right here with I, and this is time. This is Act 1. This is Act 2. This is Act 3. Again, this is rising action and this is falling action. And in this whole setup here, when you have the introduction or the enlightenment, these scenes are usually long. These shots are long. When you're in the battle sequence right here, that's where they're fast. If you have rising intensity, that's fast as well. If you have falling action, they can be slow. In the last Act 3, these shots can be long again as well. So for your establishing shot, sometimes I've seen animated movies, live action movies, where the establishing shot is 24 seconds long. It's just one continuous cut for 24 seconds. So this is like film theory in a nutshell right here. Remember that you want to slug your board and you don't want any two, I don't know what I did with my, you don't want any two shots to have the same duration and time right next to each other. All right, does this make sense, everybody? Does this make sense? And remember that this is for 24 FPS. 24 FPS. And once again, I'll just mention this. This is just the end of our drawing class. But once you get into the animation function of this, you will hear me say this somewhere in that animation class that Pixar, Disney, Cartoon Saloon, Sergio Pablo, most main studios are still operating at 24 FPS. Games are always either at 30 FPS or 60 or both. But my recommendation to you as animators is to learn this timing here first at 24 FPS and to learn it really, really well and to learn what your pacing is like at 24 FPS. And then once in your lifetime, if you need to, make the transition from 24 to 30 over 60, because trying to go back and forth, it's nearly impossible. I've only known a handful of animators that can animate at 24 and at 60. I've only known a handful of animators who can animate at both frame rates. This is a really difficult thing, is to master 24 FPS slugging, let alone trying to master it for 30. All right. All right, that was a lot. And that was just over an hour to do the animatic. If your boards are done, that's how to do an animatic. The whole trick is to get a series of JPEGs. Or when I was doing it, it was a series of Photoshop documents. And they were placed in InDesign, and that's one way to make sure it looks really clean, because then the Photoshop documents are all 1200 DPI, but InDesign is just a layout tool, and they weren't increasing the size of the InDesign file at all. They were just, After Effects was going and finding those PSDs. I used After Effects instead of Rough Animator. All right, everyone okay? Your final boards are due next week. and anything else that you need to or would like to get caught up on, they all go in that same folder that I just renamed for today. I'm not going to change that folder, just put them in that folder. Right? And what I will probably do, that folder only has 8 points allowed to it. But in my paper grade book here, like I said last week, I'll make sure that your final's worth 400 points, because it's been worth a whole bunch of points all the way up to this point. And so that makes more sense. Just keep the final board or animatic at about 400 points. All right. Questions from anybody? Comments, complaints, conundrums, criticisms? All right, I'll let you go a little bit early today. This will be up on YouTube within the hour or so.